And welcome into the Rowdy Studios. It's Celebrity Week with Nate Ryan of USA Today. How about that, huh? Does it feel good?
I don't qualify for that label, but I appreciate it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about today the state of the sport because we're going to a road course this week, Watkins Glen. Strategy always big at the road courses. But does it seem to you, Nate, that strategy has been big almost everywhere this year?
Every track we go to now, Bass, it's critical. And you take a look at the stats; they bear it out. When the car that leads the most laps wins 6 times out of 21 races, that tells you that having a fast car isn't nearly as significant or as important as it was.
Right. So what is important? I mean, track position seems to be the thing.
Right. It's knowing when to make your pit stop and how to get out in front of everybody. And then once you're out in that, I hate this terminology, clean air.
Right.
As opposed to, that germ-infested air.
Yeah, the dirty air that swirls around you back in the pack.
Yeah, and your car catches all sorts of airborne illnesses.
Right.
It's much better to be in clean air because when you're in clean air, then nobody can catch you and pass you. Your car handles much better. And we've seen, Darlington may have been the best example.
Yes.
Regan Smith takes a car that's probably top 15, doesn't pit, gets fuel only, and then elects to stay out as the leader, and it worked out.
I mean, intermediate tracks are becoming very difficult places to pass.
Right.
What can NASCAR do about that? Should they do something about that?
I mean, that gets into the whole philosophical debate about, what is racing supposed to be? Is it supposed to be a sport where, predominantly the fast cars win? Or is it supposed to maybe be more based on strategy and outsmarting your opponent? I think it's the former. And I think there's a few ways that NASCAR can look at it. I think they could probably maybe tweak on the cars a little bit more to remove aerodynamics from the equation. Although when they introduced this new car, that was supposed to be the idea, that they would take away the aero push or whatever.
Well, the thing about it is, I think is interesting, if you only take away a little downforce, you just make it the bit that you have more important. It's like horsepower at a plate track, right? Cut the horsepower in half and all of a sudden 2 or 3 horsepower becomes kind of big. It's like that with aerodynamics. I mean, you're going to have to take a ton away to make mechanical grip decisive again.
Right.
At the front of the field. So, and what about tires? I mean, Goodyear's in a tough spot.
Yeah, that's the other factor, is that Goodyear certainly could be asked to maybe increase the tire wear a little bit because they've done such a good job. Some drivers have said maybe they've done too good a job at making the tires too durable, where it doesn't matter if you take 2 or 4, if you take none, the tires don't wear. And therefore that eliminates a little bit of an element of needing to pit and brings all these other, Indianapolis was the best example where, oh my gosh, the caution came out, now we can't pit. Like, it's so,
it's counterintuitive
to what you're used to in NASCAR. Teams they waited till 2 laps after a restart. You had this wave of a dozen cars come in and pit under green.
Right, we want to pit under green.
Which is the antithesis of what stock car racing usually is about.
And part of that, of course, was Indy and Pocono were both big enough so that you can pit under green and not lose a lap. So you're really not taking a chance.
Right.
And we're going to see that again this weekend at Watkins Glen, 2.45-mile road course. Pit when you hit your window. Don't worry about whether it's green or yellow, and try to get some track position. Is aerodynamics a big factor here, or this is more just about the fact that essentially you're looking at one good way through the corners?
Yeah, this is just more about strategy from the perspective, as you said, it's a big enough track that you can't go a lap down if you do pit under green. So you're trying to play the strategy so you hit your windows perfectly on here's where I can pit and make it to the end without having to stop again. And then it just depends on driver skill. And aerodynamics don't really come into play at a road course. It's more about how well does a driver have the feel for what they need the car to do to get around the corners. And of course, we'll hear names like Tony Stewart, Marcos Ambrose, and Jeff Gordon, Montoya. Those are the names you'll hear this weekend about guys who know how to get around this track.
And how important then does qualifying become? I mean, this has got to be, I would think, Martinsville, it's pretty big, and the road courses.
Huge, yeah, because if you start at the back, then you can pretty much toss whatever strategy you have out the window. You almost have to go off sequence from the strategy that is viewed as the winning strategy. You have to gamble. But what we've seen this year, again, is that oftentimes, for whatever reason, the caution comes out at exactly the right time, and a gamble, such as the one Paul Menard made in Indianapolis, works out
perfectly
to the T.
Yeah. Who do you like this weekend before I let you go?
I think I like Tony.
That's who I picked.
Really? I think it's a big weekend for him. I think if he doesn't win this weekend, then I think he could get a top 5 and solidify himself a little bit more in the top 10. But if he has another race like he did at Sonoma and he doesn't win, I think suddenly people are wondering, where's your chase bid going to come from?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Richmond's a good track for him, but you can have disaster anywhere. and his margin for error is probably gone after what happened at Sonoma. So we'll have to see. Nate Ryan of USA Today, thank you so much for coming in, sir.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see what the strategy situation holds this weekend. And I'm just going to stop talking.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.